All right, we are joined by our good friend Sean Salisbury. Sean, what's going on, man? How are we doing tonight?
Blake, honored to be with you, man. You're killing it, and it's great to be on with you. And I love this time of year, not only baseball, but damn, you listen to you talk about Arkansas's big fellas and Auburn and how you got to move the line of scrimmage and how that defensive front for LSU. Yeah, I'm ready. I don't know. I got no eligibility left, and Brian Kelly doesn't want me to, brother, but I'm ready.
Well, Sean, and we could start off there. I do want to get to some baseball questions with you, though, too.
You got it.
Sean, we saw last season that the SEC and really around college football, there was a lot of great defensive linemen. We saw what Georgia did. We saw what Alabama did. But I think the script is being flipped around the country. Sean, when I pop in the film against Arkansas and I pop in the film against Auburn, not only do they have talent, but they have experience. Let me ask you this, though. When you have that much experience at one position group, can that make you a deadly team, especially down the stretch in late November?
Yeah, it can, Blake. It's a great point. And there's certain things that withstand the test of time, whether it's playing in the 80s, the 90s, 2010, or last year's football team. And you mentioned Arkansas and the physicality and experience and what matters. You're damn right it can. And wearing you out. And let's not forget, their quarterback's not exactly a stiff. He can play coming out of play. What it does is it allows you not only, and we know they're physical, their coach loves to be physical at the point of attack. And what that does is you have to, as a defensive front or a front seven, it's to make it easy for fans, and I know you got really brilliant listeners and people who follow and watch, is when you play the Tennessee Titans in the NFL, and we saw it at Alabama. What makes Tannehill, or when things are going well, if you're the linebacking core or a strong safety, you absolutely have to look at the fellas up front and that big horse carrying the football, right? We know they will. You just do. That's always your number one assignment on defense is make sure that guy doesn't wear us out. And when you have experience, and sometimes it's not the best players, Blake, you're right. When you're a grown man at 23 who's got a red shirt or a transfer, and it's 18, 19-year-old who may be more gifted, but just doesn't quite – the old man strength with a little veteran, it does matter. And then it's not like they got a hack at quarterback, so they're good. So teams like that, and we've seen it happen every year when Arkansas or Wisconsin get into a game against a team that's perimeter-wise better than them, but they control and dominate the line of scrimmage because some dude stays 4 years, or 3 or 4 guys, or 6 guys stay and they're seniors, and 4 of them are seniors. There's something to be said for that. Now, listen, talent usually wins, but if talent ain't getting the chances because you're wearing them out up front, different ball game. And we know the big fellas in the SEC, whether you're talking Georgia, what's Florida going to be like? We know Alabama. We know LSU's skilled position and how physical they can be, especially on the defense front. All those great things. Do not discount. We saw a defensive front dominate college football with Georgia and win it last year with a walk-on quarterback who wouldn't get on a Disneyland ride because he's so short to tough. Okay, but and I mean that with respect. I get it. I friggin' love watching Stetson Bennett play football. Point is that the measurables, you look at that, but they kicked. Well, think about the game they got beat early when they got beat by Bama. They got their ass kicked at the point of attack, right?
No doubt.
And then all of a sudden you switch it around, and who's taking care of their business, whether it's the offense or defensive front, that experience. So we can go all through that. A&M's got to get it. When A&M was at its worst, what was happening when Sumlin was there? Start fast, experience, and big fellas couldn't sustain it. So you're damn right. We're going to look at the big dogs. I assure you, an Arkansas – somebody who understands the experience at the point of attack is going to beat somebody good this year, and it's going to disrupt the SEC or the college football playoff picture, I assure you.
I agree with you there, and that's, Sean, honestly, what I've been harping on. I mean, look, you can say, like you said, talent can trump a lot of things, but, Austin Decklis, the right tackle for LSU, who's now with the Texans, didn't give up a sec against Will Anderson. He's not better than Will Anderson. He's literally played over 4,000 snaps. So he's seen everything. So I agree.
There's something to knowing how to get, Blake. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You make such a friggin' fantastic point of, if you and I are going to Vegas to bet and say, who's going to win that battle most of the time? And you're going to say, I'll take that dude for that Will Anderson dude from Alabama. He ain't half bad, right?
Right.
Well, every now and again, those guys are, when I say getting paid too, that used to be for the NFL. Now in college football, those dudes are getting paid too now. So, and God bless them for it. But there's something to be said, especially at that position. I can get by with an 18-year-old who runs 4.3 and beat you. But you know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's something to be said when we're talking about the physicality up front. And with all the changes, when we were at our best at USC, when I played there, and not my right arm, I like to think, well, I could throw it a little, is when Bruce Matthews, Don Mospar, Roy Foster, Jeff Briegel, Ken Rutgers. I mean, when we had that was when everybody stayed in school for 4 years. And we knew when we walked down the tunnel, we were kicking your ass at the point of attack.
No doubt.
There's something to be said for physicality. That always withstands the test of time.
They do have a lot of good quarterbacks in the SEC. More honestly, Sean, than when I was growing up. There was always the one superstar that you would have, the Tim Tebow, the Cam Newton, the Joe Burrow. But you really have a lot of good quarterbacks in this SEC right now. When you look around the league, I guess, what is just your thoughts when you look at all of these quarterbacks?
I'm thinking, well, first of all, I'm glad I'm not playing anymore because you're like, man, these cats are they're out there the size of linebackers and they run like running backs and they can throw it a country mile and they're accurate. Other than that, they suck. But you know what, Blake, I'm with you. Think about it. We go back and think over I'm older than you, but I started to think and say, okay, every now and then you'd pluck a guy or two, right, from the SEC. No disrespect, but they were SEC based their winning on knocking you in the mouth, making a few plays, and physically beating you up, right? Mm-hmm. And listen, they may have great receivers, but across the SEC, but it was a one or two really solid quarterbacks, and every now and then you get a great one, right? Like a Tim Tebow, who was a great college player. Now go up and down the list, and they're not just one deep, Blake. All of a sudden, hell, JT Daniels is now on his third team because a walk-on beat him out. Fields had to leave because another guy. I mean, you start to go down, and now we got JT Daniels at West Virginia out of the conference, and the redshirt freshman the redshirt veteran who's the national champion on paper and measurables is like one of the worst. When you look at him, you say, well, that's the team with the guy who may not play on Sundays yet. That sucker will beat you up and down. Tennessee. They're going to run 90 plays a game, and that kid is a monster.
Yeah.
Whether Jackson Dart wins the job or not, I'm going to tell you as an SC guy, I hated to see him go. With Lane Kiffin, he's going to do some stuff. You thought Matt Corral could move around and throw the ball around a lot. This kid's a phenomenal talent. We know that Georgia's going to bring the noise just because they do. Well, Bryce Young ain't bad. He'll do in a pinch. Go up and look at Florida and Richardson. Take a look at everywhere, a battle royal, whether it's Nussmeier, whether it's Miles, whether it's Jaden Daniels. I mean, you got third string guys on teams that if they're not in the transfer portal are guys who could possibly play on Sunday. And I'm not kidding you. So, and I'm leaving people out. Mike Leach, Will Rogers will complete 72% of his passes. It is the eighth guy in the SEC. Hell, and we don't know who's coming out of damn Texas A&M. The eighth guy in the SEC, and Oklahoma and Texas are coming down the pike in the next couple of years. So we'll just add a couple more. By that time, it'll be Arch Manning and somebody else. It's as good depth-wise in the SEC at that position that I've ever seen. And by the way, Kentucky's got a first-round quarterback too, and Will Levis. He ain't bad. So that's what I mean. They're so good. We're leaving guys out that could actually win the Heisman Trophy. It is as deep as it's been that I can remember watching SEC and college football. It's phenomenal.
I stuck up a lot for Will Levis until I saw him put mayonnaise in his coffee. I'm out.
Man, listen, you just screwed it up for me, too, because I didn't know that. Now I'm done with his ass.
Oh, yeah.
And now he could throw it. And here's the thing about it is, if he's that good, he can put whatever the hell he wants in his coffee, my man. But I'm with you. I'm all black all the time when it comes to coffee. So if you put a milkshake in it and it's a mayonnaise milkshake, I'm out too. I'm with you.
Well, I tell you, I heard Warren Buffett do a seminar one time, and he says he eats McDonald's every morning for breakfast. Well, I started doing that thinking I'd get rich. The only thing I got was fat. So sometimes,
yeah, they say when they say, "Hey, man, mirror yourself after those guys who've done it the right way." That's when I go to McDonald's. They give me 4 Big Macs and a Diet Coke. Right? That's the way you combat that.
I do want to ask you, and sticking around college football, is there any team that you are really high on that you think is going to make some waves that nobody's talking about?
You know who I think is sneaky, and there's a reason, and it goes to veteran solid quarterback, and always physical, but got enough playmakers. And I don't think they're going to win the national title, but I assure you they are going to be around. And because it's and I mean this, it's my conference where I played, and out in the Pac-12, which is going to be about the Pac-4 if this continues when other teams leave. Keep an eye on Utah.
Oh, yeah.
They are – I think Kyle Whittingham's the most underrated coach in the country. I'm not saying there's good, but, because it's Utah, a lot of times you'll see them playing Stanford at a 10 o'clock East Coast game. We don't see them on the national stage, but, Blake, here's what they're going to do. They're going to show up, and they got those guys that you got to take an elephant gun to shoot and kill them before they'll quit playing. Kyle, honest to God, and their quarterback is really good. They know how to run the football. You may beat them, but two things I know about them: they don't beat themselves. They're always football sound. Whittingham expects them. They can beat you 41-38 once in a while, but they don't give a lot of points up, and they will throat punch you throughout the game. I obviously like my Trojans because they got the best quarterback in the conference, right?
Right.
But I think that's no surprise because Pac-12 and they should be the favorite. But I'm going to tell you that this team that the Pac-12 I don't think is that deep right now. If you can get through some top-heavy games, this team's how we always Iowa just kind of hangs around always, right? You're
right.
like, what, this again? They're 9-1 or 9, and you're like, where the hell they come from? But this team's got some explosiveness in Utah. The conference isn't real strong. Their legs can be fresh. And if you decide not to show up physically, you better have a good supply of body bags. And I'm just telling you, Whittingham doesn't back off. That's a sneaky team. I'm anxious to see, and I don't know if they're that good. I really don't. You, Blake, you know better because you are. Hell, you can tell me who the third string tight end for Florida is right now. But
Keith Smith.
Yeah, see how stupid you are. See what you see. There you go. To your brilliance. So I'm anxious to see how Billy does because I'm a big Billy Napier guy. How they expand, and he's got a quarterback that they got the best quarterback they've had there in quite some time, right? So yes. I'm just kind of anxious to see if all of a sudden we wake up and they're like, oh, okay, Florida's actually pretty good. With the court, whenever you got that quarterback, you always got a chance, right? We know Tennessee's going to play fast. Can they sustain it? We know those, but I think a team to look for is Utah because they're not going to be beat up. They're just not, and they're going to hang around. They're not a national title team, but they're a team that when we're talking in November, and if I'm on your show again, we'll say if this happens, they could be playing for the Pac-12 championship and having themselves in position to win the conference. And if they only have one loss, who knows? Maybe they're playing for a playoff situation. They are sneaky good. They really are.
I know, Sean, when I saw the bet online number of -1, Utah going to Florida, I'm like, look, man, what am I missing? And I agree.
I'm telling you, brother, I'm telling you.
They can be sneaky good.
Yep.
And I'm not going to say this, but I might have picked Utah. The SEC fans aren't going to really like it.
I might say this out loud. And I don't care if the SEC fans don't like it, even because I love the SEC. I am taking Utah, okay? Little early. You get them early. I'd rather the physical part, if you're Kyle Whittingham, you want to get them before Billy gets them into a rhythm, right?
I agree.
You want to knock that out early. So,
talking about your team, USC, obviously getting Lincoln, you get a lot of big pieces. You get Addison, you get Caleb. You did some things along the offensive line. Sean, I don't want to say USC's back, but are they back? I mean, because, man, they got some pieces.
Yeah, they're far more back than they've been. And Clay did a nice job, but Clay hit his head on the ceiling, right? There was only a certain – we just couldn't break through it. And it doesn't mean he's not a good football coach. But Lincoln, listen, we know what Riley brings to the table. The quarterback's going to put up numbers. They've got speed. Hell, he's trying to we're all around Southern California. And in truth, Blake, when we are at our best is when Pete didn't have to recruit outside a 100-mile radius, and you kept all those guys there and stole a guy from Texas and Florida and Western Pennsylvania, and you win national titles, right? But the thing that's been missing from them is an attitude on defense. It used to be, that when people walk down the tunnel, when Oregon State can waltz into our building and kick our ass physically, it's like, well, when I say our, meaning USC, it's like, I'm not on scholarship anymore. There's something lost, but there's a different attitude. This is the same feeling I had after you win a title when Pete Carroll was coming back and said, oh, okay, different. We got a kid who's you can name 5 quarterbacks, and if every guy in the world's not naming Caleb Williams and you're making a mistake, he's that good. He doesn't have to. There's no learning curve because of what the verbiage that Lincoln brought with him. He's got that. You got the Bolitnikoff guy. You guys got a Bolitnikoff guy, so you know how good that type of player Addison is. And the key for them is they're going to do all the RPO and spread you out and space the field and put you in a position to where you got to cover in space with their team speed. But the next level for them is getting a little bit nastier. I need because you go to University of Arizona and we can't choke out Arizona last year. You know what I'm saying? Or the year before. It's like, and no disrespect, but give me a friggin' break. Okay? Give me a break. And it's frustrating. So Lincoln, there's got to be an attitude, a swagger that goes with, we're not just finesse good, because they'll score. The question is, when you're playing against somebody, are you going to get a stop when Bryce Young in a playoff game comes to town? One of those, listen, skill-wise, they should win the Pac-12. I got to see Lincoln take their believability to another level. But over the next 8 to 10 years, they should be a powerhouse. Now, when they get to the Big Ten, and maybe competition's going to ramp up. But right now, perfect time for fresh legs to do it. When you got a player that's a Heisman Trophy guy, I believe them or Utah are the best teams. And I'll take the quarterback. When everything's equal, I take the better quarterback. We got it. Lincoln Riley. I just need to be them nastier. I need them to have a little bit of Georgia and LSU. I'm talking about with the big fellas where we used to dominate. Even though I like spread out stuff, I got to be able to get a first down and get a stop on 3rd and 1, which we haven't been very good at doing the last couple of years.
I asked Dave Aranda when LSU played Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley, because, Sean, they do the counter RPO.
Oh, yeah,
both
big time.
Pull,
yep.
You pull it, you throw, whatever. And I asked Dave, I was like, Coach, how do you stop that? He goes, you have 2 first-round linebackers that can run like the wind.
Right.
That's the only way possible.
It's the truth.
Look, they're going to put up points, but I agree. You got to get nasty on defense.
But I love that point, not only by Dave, who can, Dave's as good as we have in the country. Look what he's doing at Baylor. But Georgia, they have 5 first-round. It didn't matter what you did. Their linebackers bigger, and they can beat you to the sideline and scrape. They run. They got defensive tackles that chase down running backs. I mean, crazy. And he's exactly right. You got to have guys that are running backs that are built like linebackers and strong safeties, right? That explosive ability. And you know this, Blake. Everybody thinks Lincoln's a passing fancy. Of course they want to pass it. But guys like Lincoln Riley and Mike Leach and Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin, they want to run it. They honestly, they want. And when they're going, I'll tell you what, when Oklahoma was at their very best and when USC will be at their very best, Caleb Williams will throw it 30 times, go 27 to 30. They'll want to run it about 35, 40 times. Honest to God, that's what they want to do now. And then you got the quarterback's feet mixed in as well. Now you're hosed if you don't get guys on the perimeter that can run like SEC linebackers. So, yeah, Lincoln wants to run it, and they will try to do exactly what they do. When you're getting those big fellas out that can run on the edge from the offensive line, and SC, well, they've been known to be able to run the football. We'll see if Lincoln can get that back in. But they're going to spread it more than they ever have. And hopefully at the point of attack, they'll be physical.
Sean Salisbury is our guest. You can follow him on Twitter at Sean Unfiltered. A couple more questions, man. I love you being here. I could talk.
I'm honored, brother. You kidding me? Thank you.
All right. I got to get the LSU question in here. Brian Kelly, what's your thoughts? Maybe year one. I mean, they have a lot of talent on both lines of scrimmage and on the perimeter, but man, a transition year is a transition year.
Yep.
And you don't know your quarterback yet. What do you think about Brian Kelly in year one at LSU?
And you know what we don't at the LSUs of the world, we say transition year, Blake, you know damn well 8 wins will be like, what? You're not allowed to take that. You know how it goes. So, come on. Right. Our expectations for like when a rookie quarterback comes in the league, if he's not Patrick Mahomes, we think the guy sucks, right? It's like slow down.
Josh Allen.
Same with the coach. Right.
Right.
We expect Brian to be in national title contention. It may not be realistic. Listen, here's what you're going to get, in my opinion. First of all, it's going to look a little bit the business side of it's going to look all kinds of different, and you know that. But I mean, just the way they go about it. Not saying which one. Listen, not saying one's right or wrong. It's just going to look different the way they go about their business discipline. It's just going to look different, and that's okay. Brian Kelly wins. Brian Kelly is never. Now, it's crazy when we say this at Notre Dame, and I know how, and I got nothing but respect for the Fighting Irish. He ain't never had what he's about to have there. Listen, the one thing Notre Dame's never had, or at least for the most part, is great team speed. They're not built like that usually. I got new Brian's. Matter of fact, Brian is going to walk in there and say, "Man, I was at the most iconic, historic football sports college program in history, and I ain't seen anything like this."
Right.
Now, he also going to say when they come to town or when he goes to town, he goes, on a daily basis, week-to-week basis, I also ain't said anything like I'm about to play either. So,
right.
But listen, they will be efficient, and Brian wants a guy who can rip it. He does. But Brian wants to throw it and run it too, but he's going to have so much team speed that you're going to see it. It's going to be fun to watch. Now, the thing about it is we know receiver, and we know you put it there. Fronts, the guys at the point of attack, the big fellas, are a strength, and he loves that because he loved it at Notre Dame. For him, what you got to find out, and I'll tell you what he hates, Blake. I don't need to tell you this, but he does not want his quarterback to make – he will – if you are thin-skinned, he is going to ride your ass 6 ways to Sunday.
Yep.
So you better be mentally and emotionally tough, and you better pull the trigger and throw on time, and you better have an answer if you throw it to the wrong guy or get out of the wrong check. You better understand why and be able to explain it to him. I love him as a coach. It'll look different. They will be competitive. They will everything you want in the passing offense is going to be fine. It's going to come down to this. Which one of those quarterbacks grabs it by the throat? Because if you got 3, I hate to say this, Blake, honestly, that's bingo. And it doesn't mean they can't be, but I got to find somebody who – and I spring training is one thing. I'm talking about when we line up against $100,000 to start out, and you know my affinity for LSU football. Love it. Friggin' love it, and the fans is the guy that can come out and where it's like, oh, you may not be Joe Burrow, but I need somebody who grabs it like Joe did. Having that kind of season, well, let's not go overboard, but that's what Brian wants, and then the rest will take care of itself because, like always, they've got weapons. Can they pull the trigger and beat you running it 1 week, dominating you throwing it the next week, playing good physical defense, but your quarterback better be a great decision maker or it will drive Brian Kelly nuts. It'll just look different. They will be competitive. They got to find that guy who is a leader that is unquestioned, but also a leader that makes plays. It just can't be, that's our veteran leader. We are past that in college football. You better be a playmaker that maximizes the building. That's what they'll be looking for.
Yeah, I know. And Brian talked a lot about this offseason about how, they have the little things where you can monitor in the GPS speed. And he goes, it was the first time in his career that he had 6 guys run over 20 more miles an hour. And I'm just like, hey, man, you're on the practice field.
And you know what he's doing with that, Blake? He's like this, grabbing that play sheet going, damn, give me that thing where we run all verts and throw that ball to the guy. Yeah, let's do that play, right? Yeah, right. Covering it up and saying, ooh, I had one of those guys in 3 years. I got 6 of them now, and I just recruited 4 more that'll be here in 2024. Good, let's go. So
throw it to Booty. Win it down. He's down there somewhere.
And I don't really care how you throw it to him. Hand it to him, put him in the I formation, throw him bubble screens, throw him smoke screens, push him vertical, throw him on the dig route. I don't care. Throw it to him. The last time Brian's had this kind of team speed, you know where he was? At Cincinnati. Honest to God truth. This is different, and he will coach it. I would, if I was an LSU fan, I would have high expectations, and I'd have them right away. I think they're going to be a good football team.
Sean, last one for me, and I want to get your take on this. I get bashed on this a lot on my show, and I understand it. I think it's because a part of their schedule and because of the talent that they have. I'm really high on Clemson, like extremely high on Clemson. I think that they got 5 dudes on that defensive line that are potential first or second round picks. And I think DJ's going to get better.
Yep.
The worst season Dabo's had is 10 wins.
Right.
When you look at Dabo, do you think that they can make the playoff?
Yeah, they're not going to and you said, when he wins 10 games, they go out there and they're still the best team in their conference for the most part. We beat them up because they're not playing in the Final Four, right?
Right.
I understand it. Listen, I know one thing. They're going to get players he can recruit, and they are going to be competitive, and they're the best team in the ACC. Make no mistake about it. I'm interested to see if last year was an aberration that he didn't feel it, or the Uiagalelei is the guy we saw against Notre Dame when he stepped in for Trevor. What guy? And I don't want to, we're every single team, the quarterback, but the reality is, Blake, the quarterback's either going to prevent you or going to get you to where you want to go if everything else is equal. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
There's about 6 to 8 plays in a game that Bryce Young is going to make that maybe, well, DJ couldn't make last year. Does that make sense? And that'll be the difference in 2 wins. If Uiagalelei is who we think he is or was, the Clemson Tigers will be with the ACC. We will be talking about them as we start to break it down, and Herb Street's talking about it when we start to slot them and say, okay, where are they? There is no doubt. Now, if DJ urinates down his leg early, there's a kid from Austin Westlake named last name Klubnik that Todd Dodge coached. I'm going to tell you now, he's a freshman. He is one of the better. He is a friggin' monster. So, listen, I'm not saying there's a controversy, but you know how this goes. Ask Spencer Rattler how that turns out. You get my point? Right. Don't leave your glove on the mound or somebody else is going to come out and pick it up and you won't see it again, especially when it's those guys. So just keep an eye on a quick, fast start. If DJ is who you and I think he is, because I'm with you, I expect better from him because he's too gifted. If he's confident and emotionally and mentally back to where he was, where he's the guy and he grasped it, the Clemson Tigers they're going to be in the national title hunt. They just are there. And you're right. Just like Georgia last year, they got a whole bunch of guys up front that are going to be picked on Sunday to play Sunday. So DJ, he is probably, you know what, kind of like what we were saying last year before he got hurt, when Jameis took over, wondering what Jameis is going to show up with the Saints. This is who DJ is. Enormously gifted. Are you going to throw it to the wrong guy? Are you going to protect it? Are you going to hold the ball too long? Are you going to get it out like you did against Notre Dame and just let it rip and play free and easy? I'm anxious to see. If he plays well, look out. If he doesn't play well, you keep an eye on the backup situation there, because I don't think Dabo doesn't want to be 3-2 and a quarterback, and they won't be. I expect DJ to elevate his play, but keep an eye, even if it's not this year. The kid from Westlake, Austin Westlake, is a monster and is going to be a player at Clemson at some time soon. I'm telling you.
I lied. Last one. You brought up Jameis, which made me think of it. It was so funny last season because I'm a LSU dude through and through, and she's a Saints girl through and through. It was funny from week to week. The first week, everybody was trashing on Jameis. This Winston kid can't throw a lick, and then we're 4-2 and beating Tampa, and he goes down. I'm like, oh no, not Jameis.
Right.
What do you think about the Saints and Jameis? I really like the maturity that he's grown in. What do you think about the Saints and him?
Yeah, for me, and last year was like it was treading lightly, both Sean Payton and him, because the Jameis we saw with Bruce Arians, high risk, high reward, right? Throw it to the other team 30 times, throw 35 touch. I mean, he really is. I'll tell you what, and listen, a Mount Rushmore guy, Drew Brees, phenomenal, right? But what they haven't had the last 2 years with Drew Brees, their vertical passing game, I could squeeze them, Blake. If you had a defense, you could squeeze them. Michael Thomas out, you could force those guys, unless Kamara was going, when they were banged up, and even with Drew healthy and all their weapons, that they weren't going to kill you vertically, right? They were horizontal, and he throws so quickly on time, Drew did, that he could make up for that. Well, when you got Jameis, you definitely increased your vertical game. But I think Jameis also came in saying, okay, it's Sean Payton. Drew Brees, the most accurate player in the history of this game. I got to play not scared, but safe, so I keep my job. Does that make sense, Blake?
Absolutely.
With all those weapons. So he played it, so he didn't pull the trigger at times when I wanted him to. But I also don't want him to be the guy who, oh my gosh, it's 3 guys on one and I'm going to throw it in there. I want him to I don't want to coach guts out of him, but I want to make sure he's judicious with the football. So with Pete Carmichael, if they can bring him to the point where it's like, take the damn shots when they're there, but if they're not, just hit me singles, dude, like you were doing last year. If we find the medium with him, the Saints are going to be they got a Super Bowl defense. They're gifted as hell now. And their defense, I think, got better, if you ask me. So with that, so it's kind of weird because I love his guts, but then it's that guy where we say, no, don't throw. Oh, nice throw. Or, oh, take that shot. So I think he was feeling his way through. Then the injury. This is going to be he is, to me, one of the 5 top storylines in the league, because if he doesn't, you don't want him to mix and match. If Jameis has guts but protects it when necessary, He's got plenty of weapons to go do work, and depending on how long Kamara is going to be out, depending on the off the field or the suspension stuff, we'll see. But this, I'm intrigued to see how Pete takes care of this and where Jameis Winston's not only maturity, which he has matured, where his level of guts and playing smart kind of come together and meet halfway. Because if he takes his shots wisely, but hits me singles when needed, the New Orleans Saints, we know what their defense does to Tom Brady. It'll be a more interesting division than it appears to be, I assure you.
I know the Green Bay game, he took a little crow hop and he threw it, I think 55 yards for a touchdown to Hardy. And I'm like, don't.
Right.
Okay.
And then it goes in there and you say, that's why we went and got him.
Right.
Yeah. But then you're like, oh, don't yank that ball in the flat that hits the right. But he's so gifted. He's that guy that you keep saying, I know I'm going to get it because he's got so much talent. But I'm with you. I think the number one thing is I've watched his maturity and not a lot of talk, just kind of taking care of his business and going to work. This is a great storyline this year in the National Football League is where Jameis is coming out of this and heading into this. And you know what? He plays great. There's a payday waiting on him, and he needs to know that.
No doubt. I agree. And I'll take him if he's going to.
Hell yes. Sure. I'm with you 100%.
Sean, thank you so much, man. You know that we're going to bring you back on. I'm itching for football,
I'm with you, brother. Anytime you need me, man, I'm here for you whenever. And I'd like to ask the favor in return because with all this college football and NFL talk, you're an expert. I'll just tee you up and let you go Bill Walton and talk forever for me, brother. I need you.
Hey, man, I'll do whatever. I'll talk. My producers get mad at me because at the end of this, we're breaking down all the teams and charting all the teams, and we're on Auburn right now. And they're like, dude, you got to stop. I'm like, I don't want to, but
hey,
it's what we do.
Well, I'll tell you guys kill it. Tell your producers to keep on keeping on, and I'll give them a break. I'll bring you on my show, and we'll just let you can go about it because we'll learn a lot from you talking about college football and all kinds of stuff. And now that I know your wife's a Saint, we got to root for them too, man. Let's go.
I appreciate it, man. I look forward to having you on and vice versa. We'll talk to you soon, Sean.
Anytime. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
All right, that's Sean Salisbury. Absolutely fantastic. Dude.